Hey, and thank you so much, you wonderful women, for coming back to my channel and participating in this conversation that I am very excited to have today. I got a message from a viewer who mentioned that she really liked the way I described something in another video about relationships with other people and how I came to the place of acceptance that I am currently in with other people's presence in my life, and how they are welcome to leave my life at any time, how I acknowledge relationships, the nature of them are dynamic and they change and grow, and how when people leave our lives, it is about their journey. It's not really about us, and that we should celebrate when people can find so much space for themselves that they make decisions that benefit them even when they hurt us. So I do celebrate when people move on in their lives from my life, because to me it says I've taught them everything that I know. I've gained everything that I need to know from them, and it's time for us both to move on and participate in life in different ways, separate from each other. So this video today is going to be on healthy relationships and the things that I've learned. And if you need more definitions or a step-by-step on how to do some of these things, I encourage you to let me know in the comments, because I don't know what you don't know. So when I talk about boundaries, I talk about them from a place of knowing that I've worked on this for years, and coming from a place of having very few boundaries, and in fact almost celebrating the idea that I didn't have any no's in my life. So I've worked really hard to establish a circle of safety around myself. And if you need to know where to start, let me know, and I would be happy to refer you to other places that have helped me in my journey. So with that in mind, I'm just going to talk about them as if we all know what the fuck I'm talking about. So boundaries are number one in healthy relationships. You need to know where you start, where the other person ends, where they start, and where you end. What's your job? Not your job, but what's your responsibility? What are your obligations? What are you entitled to? What do you deserve? What do you want and need? And these are all very different things. A lot of the times we think that the things that we need are things that we're entitled to. So an example of that would be, you are a whole person, deserving of love and respect. But that doesn't obligate the person who you love to love you in return. You're deserving of love does not obligate another individual person. It means you deserve it, yes, but no other person is responsible for offering that to you if it's not in their best interest, or it's not part of their path to do so. So it's really important to know who in your life can offer what, why, is it healthy for you, is it healthy for them, what needs to change, what can stay perfectly the same. Be open about having these conversations, because some of the toughest things to talk about are relationship issues, but we cannot expect our needs to be met if we don't know what they are, and if we're not capable of expressing them. So practice in your life in the little ways. Where do you feel safest? How can you explain to your most loved one, who would respect you, even when they couldn't love you anymore in the way that you need, would respect you no matter what, and treat you with respect in your request for support in this. Practice with them the little things. I don't want to have a conversation with you after 9 o'clock at night because it's really impacting my sleep. I'd like us to say good night at 9 o'clock. And the other person's reaction to your request for boundaries tells you everything you need to know about their intentions. Do they say, "Oh wow, I did not know I was having that big of an impact on you. Of course we should shut our conversations down before then. I want you to get the sleep that you need to be healthy"? Or do they say, "Where did this come from? This is out of nowhere. When are we going to talk? This is our only opportunity for having conversations. I feel like you're really shutting me out and shutting me down. And what if I have a crisis? Where are you? Are you even my friend anymore? And obviously those are two extremes. And most of the people would be in a spectrum somewhere in the middle. But just acknowledge, or just sort of keep in the back of your mind that the way people react to your boundaries tells you everything about why you needed those boundaries in the first place. So boundaries can be really tough, but it's something that you get better with, I promise. It's something that can be changeable too. Like, don't keep the idea in your head that your boundaries are your boundaries no matter what, and even if you change your mind or if they grow as a person, you can't change them because all hell will break loose. No, your boundaries can be flexible, but on your terms only. If you go through a month of being really well rested, and your friend has gotten used to the idea of talking to you throughout the day rather than at night, maybe you can say, hey, I'm pushing my bedtime a bit because I feel so much better. Let's try this for a little bit. Let's try 9:30. Let's try 10 o'clock. Whatever it is, 9:30. 3 nights a week, and 7:30 the rest. Like whatever it looks like for you. Participate in the formation and adjustment of your own boundaries, but never let those be dictated for you, because it's not a negotiation. What you're actually saying is, this is what I need, and if you can't meet that, then you are not the person who I need in my life in this place anymore. So that leads us to the second thing, which is after boundaries, which is called capacity. So there's two subcategories of capacity, which are limited and changing. So limited capacity refers to the idea that people in your life meet your needs in certain ways and not in other ways. So a person who has a limited capacity to be an emotional support may not be the person you go to when you have a death in your family, or when your depression comes back and you're feeling so shitty. They may be the person who you ask for a ride to the hospital because they're very much a doer kind of person, and they've always been supportive of you getting the help that you need, but without them being in a counseling or supportive one-on-one kind of position. So their capacity in your life looks different than the person who you count on as an emotional support. And it's really powerful to recognize what people's capacity are in your life, because then you don't have expectations of them that they can't fulfill, and that will hurt you if they go unfulfilled. So you're going to the friend who only offers rides with your heartache. They're going to feel like, whoa, I have no idea what to do with this. And you're going to feel like, oh, I wish I hadn't said anything. So in order to avoid that altogether, recognize what people's capacities are in your life, and go to the right people for the right needs. And this goes both ways, obviously. So, you may have a friend who comes to you for only advice on car mechanics. And you kind of think to them like, well, I would kind of like to be this person's friend. Like, you can, beyond how to fix our cars together, you can make outreaches to that end. But if they're not picking up or accepting what you're sort of proposing, then it's really important to understand that the capacity that you fill in that person's life is specific and strategic. And again, you have every right to say, well, I don't want to be someone's car buddy. Boundaries. Put an end to that relationship because it's not working mutually. But if you have a really good exchange with them and you can work on stuff together and you're learning and growing together, then that's awesome. You've recognized that although your capacity is narrow, you are still both benefiting from this relationship, and maybe in both of your best interests to continue it. So this makes it really easy to recognize when someone has given you the idea that their capacity is intense, ongoing emotional support. If they've said, I'll be there for you no matter what, I want to support you in everything you do. I know you're going through a hard time. I can be there. But then every time you text or call, they're nowhere to be found. They have all kinds of excuses, and you're left thinking, I wish I hadn't have reached out, or where is this person they promised? Like, you have to understand that people are either confused about their capacity, or they're not telling you the truth about their capacity, and their actions are way more important than what they say to you when they explain what they see as their role in your life. So listen to their words, but internalize their actions. What are they actually doing? How can you actually trust them, if you can? And also, like, communicate. Say, you told me you would be here no matter what. You're nowhere to be found. What role do you see yourself as playing in my life? And ask for an answer. And if they can't give you an answer, that is an answer. If they turn it back around on you and say, I just had no idea you would need so much, that's an answer. That's something you need to know. So their capacity has gone from being broad to being limited again. That's okay. We all change. So the second part of capacity is change. Change in capacity. Does your car buddy go from just talking about mechanics to being lovers? Sorry about the lovers. You can't read like 70s lesbian feminist literature without hearing lovers over and over. I don't know how I feel about it yet. So that person's capacity, due to your interactions with each other, has changed from being limited to being quite broad. And maybe this other person who said they'd be there for you no matter what, has actually shown you through their actions that they can't be what they said that they would. Their capacity has narrowed to a different scope for you. Maybe it's just they're there from time to time, or you talk about this specific type of issue you have in common. Whatever it is, recognize it, ask questions about it, make sure you're on the same page, acknowledge that not everyone can be everything to you, nor should they be. You can't be everything to another person, and these types of relationships are mutable, they can change. So next is the idea of loving detachment. This is especially helpful with family relationships. It's especially helpful with codependent relationships where, for example, two people who use drugs together, one of them becomes sober. Then the sober person may need to change the capacity of that relationship and lovingly detach. So they know that this is someone who has been through thick and thin with them, but their sobriety is at risk if they maintain the same level of connection in this relationship. So what they can do is take a step back, strengthen their relationship with themselves, and lovingly detach from this other relationship because it doesn't serve them and it may actually harm them. And this is through no fault of the other person, really. We're responsible for ourselves. But do we need to challenge our sobriety constantly by being connected with someone who is not interested in that same goal? But the thing about loving detachment is that it is about love. You still love this person, and it can be a very real emotion and a very real investment. So when you detach, what you're actually doing is making space for you. Again, it's coming back to you. Who are you? What do you need? What is your best shot? I also think modeling is really important when it comes to relationships, and I think it's a part of boundaries too. So when I say modeling, I don't just mean like behaving in a certain way that will teach or encourage others to act in the same way, like outside witnesses, but I mean with your partner, best friend, family member, colleague, or comrade, whoever you're working with in this interpersonal relationship. When you show them how to treat you by how you treat yourself, then you're modeling. there's this saying, we teach people how to treat us, which to a degree I agree with, but I also don't believe that I taught someone how to rape me, or a woman teaches an abuser how to abuse her. I think that this can go down the road of victim blaming pretty easily, and it doesn't take power dynamics into context. Like, we don't always have the ability to teach people how to treat us appropriately. It's not always our job to teach other people how to have interpersonal relationships that aren't abusive. It's not our responsibility to teach people that we deserve to be treated with respect. That is something that should be an intrinsic, basic, kind of foundational knowledge that all people share. So, yes, when there's no consequences for breaking down our boundaries, the other person is learning that you don't have a lot of boundaries. You don't know how to enforce them. They may not seem important, and that the price of getting to the other side of your boundaries is just persistence rather than respect. So to a degree, there is some truth in that idea that we teach people how to treat us, but I think it's way more effective to model this behavior consciously and actively. So, for example, if you're someone who treats yourself with a lot of dignity and respect, who really has a strong sense of self-worth, is someone who consistently is kind and soft with yourself, then you're teaching the other person in your relationship that this is how you want to be treated by them. But if you berate yourself, if you're hard on yourself, if you are constantly negative, you feel like you're letting everybody down, the other person picks up on that style of self-communication and will mirror it to you. So now you're getting it from two people. And this may not happen right away. Unfortunately, it can take a while for a good intentioned person to eventually just become exhausted by our own lack of self-worth, and then they eventually, it's basically a throwing up of the hands. So we can avoid that by treating ourselves primarily with respect and by not tolerating disrespect in any form. And I think it's really important too, because this type of modeling shows your partner how they can treat themselves. And in the beginning, like, boundaries can seem really intense. Like, I don't want to see you at this time. I need to do some self-care. The other person may say, well, am I not self-care for you? And, that's a really hard conversation to have. And unfortunately, you may have to have it a few times, but the truth is, eventually you may want to involve that person in your self-care, but for right now, you don't. That's perfectly okay. And it's okay for you to tell someone that you need time for yourself. We all do. And it's a really good way to cement your relationship with yourself, which getting into new relationships can sometimes become a little unsteady. We can sort of lose some of our self-care tactics. We can sort of dissolve some of our boundaries because we so badly want to be loved. I think there's a way through this, and it really is just having a strong sense of where you start and where you end, what you're responsible for, what you're capable of, what you deserve. And self-worth is not an easy thing to get to, an easy place to get to. It takes a lot of effort and energy and a lot of combating negative messages or lessons that you've learned. But it's a worthy endeavor, because your relationship with yourself is the best one you'll ever be in if you let it get there. So we can have another conversation on self-worth and that journey. But for right now, like, it's also okay to just pretend that you believe you are completely worthy of respect and then demand it from there. Because it's that like fake it till you make it, and it becomes real. Like if you are consistently saying and acting as though you believe that you are a deserving person, then your actions still become truth whether you believe them or not. So I think that's an important place to start sometimes. Sorry, my cat's adventuring all over. She's not sitting still. Come here. Come here, babe. She's coming. Hi. Look at the camera. Hello. Hi. He's priestess. Okay, I'm sorry. So modeling is really important. It shows how you want to be treated. It shows what you won't tolerate, and it teaches your partner that they too can have boundaries, and that you won't disrespect their boundaries because you know how important it is for your boundaries to be left intact. So yeah, that's modeling. Guess we can talk about presence. I think presence is really important. Presence is your biggest gift. We are only existing, like only the present moment is real. The past only exists in your brain, and the future only exists in your imagination, also your brain. The only moment that is real is now. So offering someone everything that exists to you, your presence, your current reality, is such an honor. So active listening when they feel paid attention to, when they feel that they're non-judgmentally being heard, when you're just there with them. That kind of gets into this idea of unconditional positive regard. And I don't want to get too much into my concerns with the word unconditional, because I believe that conditions are boundaries. Conditions on relationships can be very healthy. When someone tries to tell you they love you unconditionally, to me, I feel like they're not seeing me for who I am. They're just sort of almost congratulating themselves on their open-minded perspective of love. I have conditions on the way that I love people. If someone I loved killed a child, raped someone, then those are conditions on love, and my love definitely changes and stops at the place where someone actively harms another person. So I think conditions on love are pretty healthy, and even if it's like they hurt you, or they treated you disrespectfully, like your conditions don't have to be dramatic to be valid. They can be small. They can just be, this person said a racist comment. I can't look at them the same way anymore. My love for them has completely diminished, and I'm disengaging from this relationship because it's unhealthy for me. And that person is an asshole, and they need to learn that being racist equals no love. So when we talk about unconditional positive regard, that's what it's been called, but I don't necessarily agree with that definition of it, but we'll call it positive regard. So it's basically making sure that the person knows through your actions and body language and through your words that when you're communicating with them, you hold them in positive regard. You respect them. You don't think poorly of them based on what they're sharing with you. And again, we're making the assumption that we're not sharing stories of hurting other people or causing harm. We're just sharing shameful things about ourselves, things that make us question our self-worth. And so when you feel so ashamed of something and the other person holds you in positive regard and you feel it, then the shame has nowhere to hide. They're using that positive regard as a light, and shame dies under exposure. So I think that that's a really positive and powerful way to engage with someone who's sharing something intense with you. And these are all things that can be very tiring and exhausting as a human being. These are all active things. Creating and enforcing boundaries are active things. Active listening is obviously something that takes a lot of energy. Holding space is basically like an ongoing emotional embrace, and it can take a lot of energy to maintain. Regarding someone positively, when you sort of are working through your own mental judgments at the same time, that can be mentally exhausting. So we're talking about things that that take a lot out of you as a person. So thank you for trying these things. Thank you for working them into it's almost like a brain workout. So I mean, so those are just a few of the things. I think, there's a couple other, like meeting people where they're at. It's really important to not expect everyone to be where you are in your journey. If you're an activist and someone doesn't get the history of why we do things a certain way, whatever that looks like, they're trying to reinvent the wheel, but you have a different level of knowledge about it. Like, share your knowledge, bring them up as close as you can, but it isn't your job to invest so fully in this person that you create another you, right? Like, all you need to do is share with them enough to get them a little bit farther, and allow them to share with you enough to get you a little bit farther too, because we all have something to learn from each other. There's no one here who's done. When you're done, you're dead. Everyone is still valuable. Everyone still has a role to play. It may not look the same as yours, but in their path, it is more important than yours. In your path, you're the most important, but in theirs, it's them. So have a bit of respect for that, and the fact that it took you a long time to get where you are. You're still working on things, and hopefully they are too. Hopefully we are all still trying to learn and grow. And I think, what brought the message about in the first place was this idea that people can leave our lives whenever they want to. And I can't stress how important this is. Like very few people are meant to walk with us all the way home. Very few people are there at the beginning and at the end, and that's okay. We merge and ebb and flow with each other in this really beautiful sort of like celestial body, surrounding the sun, like this sort of gravitational encircling and then flying off or colliding. So it's okay when someone flies off from your gravitational pull. They weren't meant to go with you all the way. That's so wonderful that they were there as long as they were. It's so wonderful that you taught them as much as you did and you learned as much as you could. And whatever it looks like for them, the fact that you're not in their life is not personal to you. And this is the sort of like, it's so important not to take things personally, because everyone is about themselves. Everyone's journey is really their entire world. And I think when we are so invested in someone's presence in our life, the letting go comes from a place of fear. We are afraid to let go because we are afraid to lose something. We are afraid to be left alone. We are afraid no one will understand us the way that person did. None of those things are true. There is love in letting go. There is joy in starting new with someone from where you are now. Like where you started with this previous person, you were a different person. Really, like even on a cellular level, if you met them long enough ago, you were a completely different person. So maybe that person, as they leave your life, takes with them this version of you that's almost extinct now, and you've created and fostered a new sense of self to bring forward to your next relationship. And if you hold on too tight to this relationship that's trying to end, what you're actually doing is holding on to this past you that doesn't occupy real time anymore or space. So let it go, let the person go, let that version of yourself go and grow. So I really hope that you gleaned something from this video, or you're interested in having a conversation about it. I feel like there's so much, I always feel like there's so much more to be said, but this is a good foundation. If you want me to touch on anything else, or if you have your own ideas about how relationships can really thrive, I hope that you leave comments and we can talk about that. Otherwise, again, thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful day.